For this particular question, they're asking quite a bit of information regarding statistics. So they're saying which of the following is true. They talk about the range, the standard deviation, the mean, the median. So what I would recommend, really two things. One would be to recap on our program stats, just to refresh ourselves on what each of these terms have to do with. So mean, median, mode, and range. And the second thing, and more importantly, I would go to stat, edit. If you had any values in your lists, the way that you could clear the entire list, so I'll give you an example. So if I had a bunch of numbers, I could go to the top where it says L1, for example, and I could press clear down and it clears the entire list. So I'm gonna make list one all of Amara's values. Just be careful, I keep accidentally not pressing a certain key. So you just wanna pay attention that you're typing it in correctly. I'll go over to list two and we'll put all of Lance's. And then at this point, we don't even have to clear the screen. We'll just press stat again. We wanna go to calculate, which means we have to press right. And then we're specifically gonna choose two variable statistics because we have two variables. We have Amara and we have Lance. In other words, we had two lists, list 1 and 2. So we're gonna press enter here. If for whatever reason, the default is not list 1, list 2, you could always change it by pressing second. And for example, 1 would activate list 1, second and 2 would be list 2, etc. So like I could put, for example, here to change it to list 3, but we want it to be list 1, so we'll put that. Then you could just press enter, 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 all the way to calculate, press enter again, and whatever was in list 1 is by default X, and these are all the values for X. Notice it's X bar, which is the mean. This means the sum of all the X's, so they added up all these X's. Obviously, the way they were able to calculate the mean is they took the sum and divided by 5, but it's nice that in addition to finding the mean, they find some other values as well. So it saves us some time or takes just as much time as doing the mean manually. But because we get additional information here, I find this to be superior. This is the sum of all the x's squared, which is kind of an intermediate step for doing other calculations. This is the standard deviation. There's a sample standard deviation and a population standard deviation. We won't get into the nitty-gritty of it, but they're fairly similar values. N is how many terms there were, which we knew there were 5. This is the mean for Y. And notice it has the same information, but for Y, so I'll just scroll down a little bit. It gives the minimum and the maximum for X. So minimum, maximum. Gives the minimum and maximum for Y as well. So right away with the mean, we see that they're both 95. So that actually right away makes the correct answer option C. However, let's go ahead and look at some of these other options. So to find the range, unfortunately, that's not something that's explicitly given to you here. But they do give you the min and max for these values. So if you subtract them, 98 minus 93, this is 5. So that's the range for Amara. The range for Lance, the Y values, is 100 minus 88, which clearly is not 5, it's 12. So we know that those are different. The standard deviation, well, let's go ahead and look at that. We knew it was these two that have to do with like the S and the sigma symbol here. So for this one, Y, so Lance, his is 4 and 3 around there, whereas Amara is, 1.8, 1.6. So clearly Amara doesn't have a greater standard deviation, Lance does. The median isn't something that's given to us, but it's the middle value. So in this case, if you arrange these from smallest to biggest, let's say 93, 94, 95, 95, 98, the one in the middle was 95, it was the third value. Whereas here, if we do it from smallest to biggest, let's say 88, 95, 96, 96, 100, 96 was the third one. So they don't have the same median. The median for Lance was 96. The median for Amara was 95.